And so one of the first question, well, not really a question, the first thing a point I want to make is that the Caribbean has scholarship. And we in the Caribbean, we have developed a very strong intellectual tradition or thought, scholarship. Our people in the Caribbean, what they have done is that they have had their own writings, their own ideas, their poems, their thinkings, all of these different stuff. So the Caribbean has a intellectual tradition. But what are some of the themes of Caribbean by Caribbean scholars? Things like one, they are going to describe the social, economic, and political conditions of the Caribbean. So when we hear the word intellectual tradition, we're really talking about scholarships about the Caribbean. Scholars that have written about the Caribbean and its problem, but they have not only wrote about these issues, but they also seek to provide a solution to the problems that we face in the Caribbean. And so these scholars, their intention is really for the Caribbean to be a better place economically, socially, or politically. And some of the issues that we face in the Caribbean are like injustice, the negative effects of colonialism, poverty, racism, classism, dependency, underdevelopment. These are some of the issues that we're facing. And so when we talk about intellectual tradition, the intellects in the Caribbean, they are going to discuss these very same themes. And it's not only and some of the things that we have as intellectual tradition in the Caribbean are borrowed from like theories. Some of the sociologist theories that we borrow, the political science theories, we borrow it from other parts of the world. But not because it is borrowed means that it is not intellectual. If you understand what I'm saying, because all what we have today as Western thought that the Americans and the British and the European countries use, they stole those thoughts from Africa, from Egypt to be specific. And so every part of the world has their own thought. They have the American thought or American philosophy, European thought or Western thought, Western philosophy, Asian thought, African thought. So if everybody in the world, every region in the world has their own thought, then the Caribbean must have their own tradition too. And we actually have our own tradition, our own scholars have theorized on the Caribbean. So they describe the problem, they provide a solution, hoping that it would be a better place. Following, ladies? Ladies, talk to me. That's the only way I can know if you're following.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, good, good. Now, let us look at some of the intellectual traditions in the region. So what the syllabus has done is that the syllabus has divided intellectual tradition into several different categories. We're not going to look at all of them today. So we have things like Afro-Caribbean thought, economic and political thought, Indo-Caribbean thought, feminist thought, and indigenous perspective. So these are the different intellectual thoughts of the Caribbean. As I said before, some of them are borrowed from other places and applied to the Caribbean. When you hear the term Afro-Caribbean thought, what do you think that is going to talk about? Afro-Caribbean.
Sir, people who originated from Africa.
Yes. What about them? They just originate?
So the traditions that they brought from Africa.
Yes. Continue.
I continue. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're on
So
track. It is. Go ahead for me, Daily.
so it has to do with everything surrounding the African and its cultural problems, practices, mixing of culture and those stuff
Very good.
within the
Yeah, man.
community.
Very good. Yes. So both of you are correct, Jan Sanchez. Yes, it has to deal with people of uh, African people within the Caribbean or Afro-Caribbean people. Those of us who are descendants of Africans. Economic and political thought. What do you think that's going to talk about?
Um,
Government systems and economic strategies in the Caribbean,
Yes,
economic
that is correct.
problems, so stuff.
Indo-Caribbean thought. What do you think Indo-Caribbean going to deal with?
shared experiences of like Asians, probably Indians, the Chinese, and so forth when they were contract workers in the Caribbean.
Very good. Yes, that's what it's going to. Feminist thought.
Anything that have to do with experiences of women, whether it is social, political, or economical.
Very good. Indigenous perspective or indigenous thought.
Um, well, it have to do with the Amerindians, Tainos. There are some people that think that they are naive, helpless. They portray them as violent, as they also talk about their political structure and so forth.
Excellent. Very good. That's what these thoughts, individual thoughts, are talking about. Very good. Thank you very much, Sinclair. So what we're going to do is that we're going to look at Afro-Caribbean thought today. And next week, we're going to look at economic political thought. Then after we look at economic, then we're going to group all these three together, Indio, feminist, and indigenous. And we're going to use one class to look at these three. All right. So for today's class, we're going to look at Afro-Caribbean thought. And we already established that Afro-Caribbean thought is really going to look at the Afro-Caribbean people and the effects that they have the effects of colonialism on people of African descent in the Caribbean. And we know that over 80% of Caribbean people are people from African descent. And we face a lot of injustice, racial injustice, right, in the Caribbean, a lot of discrimination, a lot of different issues. People of African descent. In fact, every community in the Caribbean where they have not only the Caribbean but in the Americas where they call ghetto, only black people alone live in the ghetto. And there's a historic reason for that. Why we blacks live in communities that are not developed. It's a reason for that. It's not because black people worthless and lazy, or they just want to go and steal people land and squat. There's a historical reason behind it. Why everywhere in the Americas where you have some form of inner city communities is where majority of its people are people of African descent. In fact, when the Indians came, they got land. When the Chinese came, they got land when they finished work. The whites came and stole the land, so they took the land for themselves. But when slavery finished, then tell the white man, the blacks say leave the plantation, and they left the plantation, and so they had no land. So what they supposed to do? Live in the sky? They're going to squat. They're going to find squatting as one of the issues. We don't have no inheritance. Some of us don't have any family name. We don't have no family name and we don't have no legacy, no land, nothing. The only thing we have is our ambition. And that's the fact. So we're going to look at some of the injustices of the people from African descent. Now, Afro-Caribbean thought is divided into 3 categories. So you have Pan-Africanism, Negritude, and Rastafari. Pan-Africanism, which is one of the Pan-African thought, not Pan-African, Afro-Caribbean thought, is that it is a political and cultural intellectual phenomena which regards Africans and people from the African descended people as one unit. So we are seeing ourselves as one, whether you live in Africa, the continent itself, Africa, the descended people, the diaspora, everybody that live, we have some African blood in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, anywhere you have African blood running. We are one unit. That is what Pan-Africanism is saying. We are one. It seeks to unite Africa and unite all of us, and for us to have this pride about African, pride of being African. So the concept of Pan-Africanism was conceived by people of African descent or people in the diaspora, mainly in the Caribbean and the United States. So it's really started in the United States, but by people who are from a Caribbean lineage in the US, like people, for example, like Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and all of these different persons. They are all Pan-Africanists. It was a response to the negative notions about Africa that we have been brainwashed about. And some of us still hold on to those negativity. One is the concept about good and bad here. Somebody come to you and say, you're too pretty for a black girl. Or in Blackie, anything black not good. These are some very negative mental enslavement issues that we're still struggling with as people of African descent. And Pan-Africanism, which started around the 1930s or so, from 1930s on, so they have been fighting the battle for African people to have pride in themselves, have pride in their skin complexion. See Africa as a great and glorious continent. But right now, I had a student, a very good history student who did history up to the Cape level last year. And we were studying Pan-Africanism, and she said, me, I'm not going back to Africa. I would never go back to Africa. Lord have mercy. She said, I'll never go back to Africa. And oh, I'm romanticizing Africa. She said, I would never go back. Very good student, brilliant, brilliant student. And the class took her on when it with it. She said she's not going back to Africa. She don't know why people want to go back to Africa. She wants to remain in Jamaica. Anyway, so we have all of these negative stereotypes about Africa. We say Africa as a country where people poor and pauperized and children, you have the raven waiting on the little children to die. Yes, those are some of the images that we have been taught about Africa. Am I wrong or am I right? Hello? Yes.
Right, sir.
So we have all of these negative views. And right now we have a phenomena in Jamaica and in the the Caribbean, it's not no, it's always where we hate ourselves. We hate our skin complexion. We hate our nose. We hate our lips. Because of the negatives that they have been brainwashed us. They say that we're lazy. Now I'm going to play something from you from Malcolm X. Hear this out.
Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Sir, you're mute.
Thank you very much that you recognize that I mute. I was muted. All right, ladies. So Pan-Africanism, some of the objectives of Pan-Africanism is to rehabilitate aspect of our African culture, for us to value it, to have that level of pride, to regenerate unity in Africa, that oneness. And so we need to ask ourselves, who would have taught us to hate ourselves? Who taught us to hate ourselves? Clearly, that is within the legacies of slavery and colonialism, that we still have a self-hate. And every single person right now is struggling with some form of self-hate, either with your hair or the color of your skin or your lips or your nose or something, because we still feel that whatever is white is right. And we are not saying preaching racism. Pan-Africanism is not preaching racism. It is saying if white is right, then black also is right. It's equality we're talking about. All of us supposed to be equal. White is right, black is right. You can't say that because I do something bad, it is blackmail. It cannot be that every time an accident happens somewhere, that is a black spot. It can't be every time that somebody gets raped or somebody going to a funeral or teachers protesting or this person protesting, everybody just up in black mourning. Every single thing negative in this world is linked to black, the color black. Either you're black male or you're black this. Why couldn't it be white male?
Mr. Black Magic.
Black magic. Why couldn't it be white magic? So white people don't have their form of magic? In fact, white magic is celebrated today. They have the Halloweens, the festivals, the Halloween festivals. It's celebrated. They have a lot of witch stories. You watch a lot of the movies with the witches and you read the little storybooks with witches. That's part of white magic. The Harry Potter. All of that is white magic. It's not only black people alone have magic, where they work obia or voodoo. The whites also have it. In fact, every single region of the world or every single race have their own form of magic. But it's only the black magic alone is bad.
There are also black market.
Black market.
The dark web.
And some of them will tell you that you're too pretty for a black girl. Or anything black is not good. And I hear people with it, I hear it. And then also there's another thing, I have friends who are lighter complexion than me. And I hear my fellow friends are going to say, you know, you have high color. So I said, you know, as a child growing up, I always hear people refer to people with lighter skin as high color. Maybe from them time they should recognize that I was a little rebel from inside. Because I never used to accept certain things. So I said high color. So if you have a high color, that means you have a low color. So I said, if my friends who are lighter skins are considered high color, then that means I am a low color. I said, no, 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 no. I am not low color. 1 second, lady. Yes, so that means if you have a high color, you must have a low color. Yes, Robinson, the superstition about bad luck attached to black cats. So they say a black cat is a bad luck. And in Egypt, black cat is greatness. And Black Friday. The origin of it is not good. That's correct, McDonald. So we have all of these negative about Africa and people of African descent. And so we have persons who were involved, some Pan-Africanists. Just read the textbook and you'll just read up about them. There's 1 or 2 lines. You have W.B. Du Bois, who was a Pan-Africanist. Henry Sylvester Williams, Marcus Garvey, Cyril Biggs, George Padmore, Amy Hashwood Garvey. These are some Pan-Africanists, right? And they started the movement in the United States, and most of them are people from African descent, not African descent, Caribbean descent. Marcus Garvey, Cyril Biggs, Henry Sylvester, George Padmore, Amy Garvey. These are people from the Caribbean. And then you also had Martin Luther, King Jr., Malcolm X, these are all Pan-Africanists, right? So let us look a little at Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey, we know for sure, was born in Jamaica, in St. Anne. He started the Back to Africa movement. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association in 1914 to promote the improvement of living condition of Black Africans and people of Black African descent, not only in the Caribbean, but in North America and South America. Pan-Africanist is that anywhere Black people dwell, all of us is one. That was Marcus Garvey's aim. So the other day I saw on the internet where somebody put that a Trinidadian was going to play the role of Marcus Garvey in a play. Some movie they're having about Marcus Garvey, but a Trinidadian actor is going to play the role. And I hear everybody on the internet, why it have to be a Trini? Why it couldn't be a Jamaican? Why they couldn't find a Jamaican? And I said to them, I said, Marcus Garvey would reject that notion. Because Marcus Garvey, once you're Black, don't care which part of the world you're located, we are one. That was Garvey's philosophy. So if somebody from Trinidad is playing Marcus Garvey in a play, Marcus Garvey is proud about that. Marcus Garvey was not a nationalist. Nationalists deal with only country. But he was a Black nationalist, meaning that your nation state is viewed by your Blackness. The link is through Africa. So if you live in South America, in Brazil, and you're Black, and you want to play the role of Marcus Garvey would not have a problem. But what I've realized is that a lot of people on the internet, them comment on things and they don't know nothing about it. The more I read the comments on the internet, the more I realize that Jamaica, there's a lot of dunce people in the world. They do have a sense of history. They do have a sense of politics. They do have a sense of who they are. They just feel like they have the little phone in their hands and they just make some comment. A lot of dunce people can't deal with it. Marcus Garvey also started the Negro World. He started the Black Star Line, which is a ship, Black Factories Corporation that encouraged Black economic independence. And his hope was to transport Black people back to Africa. Also, some of the impact of Pan-Africanism on the Caribbean, and we can see today, is Black pride. So a lot of us today have a lot of Black pride, where we are natural here. We embrace our skin color, right? There's also a negative I want to talk about with Pan-Africanism. A lot of the persons who tend to be Pan-Africanists, not a lot of them, but a few of them, were married to white woman. Perfect example. Look at Rastafari faith. One of the most famous person within the movement would have been Bob Marley, who popularized reggae music. And Bob Marley had there are two females. Well, they said that he had several different females, but we know about two, Sydney Breakspear and Rita. So those are the two. Rita is the black and the Sydney is the lighter skin, more European looking. Now he's Pan-Africanist, right? They say he's Pan-Africanist and he preach about black and this and all of these different stuff and erase yourself from mental slavery. But Rita, who was his wife that he married to, the African woman, he treated her badly. It's a fact. It's a fact. He treated her badly because he was with Sydney, who is, I believe, Damian Marley's mother. One of them. Treated her badly. And if you should listen, it's on YouTube. Go and listen to the interview, what Rita said. How she would have felt in the relationship being married to him. She was in one room and he was with Rita in another room. A lot of these Rastas who used to go around talking about Pan-Africanism and black pride, they don't value black women. Black women are not overall. You go on the beaches, they see a lot of them walking around with white. I don't have a problem with interracial relationship. Interracial relationship. And I'm not arguing that. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with it. And I'm not going to say not because you married somebody who is white, mean that you are not a Pan-Africanist. That's not what I'm saying. But if you see a majority of them marrying to one person of skin color and then they are telling you about African pride, then something wrong. They go to me say you don't see one black woman that is of any great significance that you want to marry to, embrace as a princess. Something wrong. Then the promotion of African culture and the birth of trade union movements and our awareness of Africa was actually built as a result of the Pan-African movement. And so Pan-Africanism is very important, very important. Next, Negritude. Negritude is another one. If we look at Negritude, Negritude is the same as Pan-Africanism, but it was really very similar. It was that this person by the name of Amy Césaire was from Martinique, went to France to study, because you know that Martinique is a French colony. And he went to France, and when he went to France, he started to face racism in France. He felt that he was not a French citizen, although they told him he was a French citizen. They were treated badly. And then he realized that it's not only, I'm the only one who is being treated this way, but those Africans who live in North Africa that France colonized at the period also had some of the very same issues. So people like Leonard Signor and Leon Damas, those persons, all of them. So they came together at university in France and they said, listen, we need to have pride of being African. We need to develop a pride. So what are some of the objectives of Negritude? One is to promote, is to rebut all the negative about Black inferiority. Things like black magic, as we talk about, black sheep. People ever tell you that somebody is a black sheep of the family. Black market, to rebut those notions and to build Black pride, to promote independence, Black independence from the French colonies, using the arts and literature to promote Black pride. So you're going to use poems and novels and short stories for Black pride, to improve your pride and to love Africa and to love yourselves. Another objective of Negritude is to eliminate the barrier between persons Black students who were from Africa and Black students from the Caribbean, because it is a fact, and I'm going to tell you now, is that there is a divide between African people. So people who live on the continent don't consider those in the diaspora as African, and those in the diaspora don't consider themselves as African. The Chinese that live in China see themselves as Chinese, and the Chinese that live in the Caribbean or anywhere in the world see themselves as Chinese. The Indians still call themselves Indian, don't care where they go in the world. But only the Africans alone, when they go out other parts of the world, or whether it is forced or by free will, they are not African. So that my mother, I always tell a story about my mother. My mother said that she's not African, she's Jamaican. I said, but Africa, your race is African, your nationality is Jamaican. No, I am African. I'm not African, I'm Jamaican. And a lot of people, even in this, when I was teaching this, a lot of students said, no, I'm not African. I'm not African. And they don't want to hear it. Using the word that I'm African is like a bad word. In Africa today, you have Nigerian, you have people from Ghana, you have people from South Africa. You have different nationalities, over 50 nationalities in Africa. But they are all Africans. The race is African. So our race is African. African is not a nationality in Africa. But we don't want to associate ourselves with Africa. This lady again tell me, and she said, I used to rent from her, and she said, I don't know how to remember all the conversations. And she said, I'm not African, I'm Jamaican. Me? No. People don't want to associate with Africa. The Indians still associate with India, call themselves Indian, and the Chinese call themselves Chinese. The white call themselves European. Even someone who is a university lecturer said, I put one time and I said, I'm a proud Afro-Jamaican. Why I have to use the word Afro? Why you can't just be Jamaican? No, because I'm black. And I'm proud of being African, my African heritage, but I'm also proud of my Jamaican nationality. So my nationality is different from my race. And that's the fact. To reject political and social and moral domination of the West, and to enlighten the race about African people to accept themselves. And they also want to go through a period of rehabilitation of our minds because we are mentally enslaved. And so Pan-Africanism and Negritude, although they are similar in terms of their objectives, they have differences. One, Pan-Africanism was started in the US, very popular in the English-speaking Caribbean. Negritude is the French Caribbean, started in France and French Africa. Pan-Africanism have a repatriation element to it, saying that people of African descent should return to Africa, their homeland. While Negritude, it does not speak of this return to your homeland. It just said that, listen, we need to align ourselves back to the spirit of the race, the black race, or this pride in our African self. And the persons who started these movements are different. So we have W.D. Du Bois, Henry Sylvester, Marcus Garvey, Cyril Biggs, George Padmore, Amy Ashwood Garvey. These are persons who were very popular in the Pan-Africanist movement. And Negritude, they have Amy Césaire, Leonardo Sinor, Leon Damas. Demas, they pronounce it. What are some of the impact of Pan-Africanism in the world today? One, we have not in the world, but at the time, Amy Césaire and others went back to French Martinique and they started their protests. A lot of African countries in North Africa received their independence as a result of one of the contributing factors was Negritude. The Black pride, it helps writers like, it influenced writers like Derek Walcott and Claude McKay. Countries like Haiti and Cuba also embrace Pan-Africanism. So our third Pan-Africanist thought is the Rastafari. And Rastafari movement started in the 1930s by Leonard P. Howell. And it's really, some of the belief is that Black should be redeemed. You return back to Africa. They see Haile Selassie as a type of messiah, the use of marijuana, the anti diet, the comb. Contributions of Pan-Africanists is reggae music. If we look at our music, there's a lot of injustices that the music speak about. The cultural trends, the wearing of dreadlocks, turbans, African jewelry, sporting of the flags. Even while we talk today, we talk about reparation that white should pay for slavery, enslaving people of African descent. Rastas were the first to start up the debate about reparation. Rastas are the voice for the hopeless. And so on the issue of Rastafari, most of us, a lot of people tend to be very negative towards Rastas. Back then and maybe today, they face a lot of persecution, just because they embrace being Black and they wear dreadlocks. They have pride in their African hair. Pride in their African hair. And they face a lot of persecution over the years. Right here in Jamaica, the first Prime Minister of Jamaica told the police force, bring in the Rastas, dead or alive. He sent the police out to kill the Rastas, locked them up in prison cell, gave them pork to eat, Bustamante. Persecute the Rastas in Grenada and other parts of the Caribbean. They persecute the Rastas too. In fact, if you're a Rasta, you could not travel in the 1960s up to the 1990s. Up to 1990, countries like the Cayman Islands and British Virgin Islands banned persons who are Rastas from traveling. Once you're a Rasta, you couldn't travel to certain countries. And so we know for sure that the Rastas or anybody that portrayed Blackness was being persecuted or have been persecuted, just like Walter Rodney. Walter Rodney was a Guyanese lecturer in Jamaica. He went to a Pan-Africanist conference in the US and came back to Jamaica, and Jamaica said, no, we're not gonna, you can't come back into the country because you're talking too much about Pan-Africanism. A UWI lecturer and not even could have come and collect him clothes or in books. They banned him and sent him back to Ghana. And years later, they killed him in Ghana because he was a Pan-Africanist. And as a result of that, UWI students, they protest the Walter Rodney riots. Protest and went to Jamaica House and they blocked the road and said that they must allow the lecturer into the country. But Ushera would have none of it. Ushera and the JLP would have none of it. Even a lot of us today will go and watch Black Panther the other day. under Usher government, they banned Black Panther, the comic, because it was a comic, a book, and they banned it. They banned Black Panther, but no, everybody are dressed up and I watch Black Panther. What a history we have, only if we know it. Only if we know our history. Even the other day, you see, and then the other thing is that, you see, I have come to realize in my personal journey on this earth, that is not everything people preach them really believe in. You see, people talk about women's rights and women should not be abused. And yes, still in the parliament of Jamaica, we have a politician that beat a woman with a stool. And every woman, they put out statements and they put out videos and he's still there. Nobody cares. And then you have some people talk about, oh, they love poor people. But yet still they discriminate against people who are poor. Look how some people treat the helpers and the gardeners. Look how they talk to them. They don't really care. They go to church and say they love their neighbors themselves. They don't love their neighbors themselves. They don't treat people based on their occupation. People's sense of worth is not based on the job that they do or where they live. Look how they right now in the another negative effect which still continues the other day in this country is that this young child had a Rasta hairstyle. Whether it is religion or she wants to wear it, and the school said that she shouldn't wear it. And the government, the parents bring it to court, and the government went and fought against the decision. And the judge said, listen, the school has a right to say the child should not wear dreadlocks. In Jamaica in 2020, I believe the ruling happened. You realize, say, sorry, just finished, just like that, nothing, it just dead and gone. So schools can say to children that you can't wear your natural hair. If you cream your hair, you can wear it. Anyhow, you can let it go and you can do all type of stuff. But if you want to wear your afro, you can't wear it. If you want to cane roll it or you want to do anything else to it, they're going to tell you that you can't do it. If you want to dreadlocks it, you can't do it. So a lot of the schools are perpetuating that level of hatred towards the people of African descent. A lot of the policies and a lot of the government rules. So if the court in Jamaica make a rule that a child could be discriminated because she's wearing locks, that's terrible for in 2020. Very terrible. And in fact, there are some churches today now that tell you that you can't use drums in the churches. And drum is evil and that. That's terrible too. Because the enslaved people, the planters were the first group to ban drums. And that is part of the negatives of slavery. So ladies, it's so much to discuss about intellectual tradition. So we look at AfroCaribbean thought today. So when we meet again on Monday, we're going to look at the economic and political thought. And then on Wednesday, we're going to look at Indo-feminist and indigenous perspectives. All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.